Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Bloody. Maybe it's best not to know the answer to that one. Hi everyone, I'm your host. And is Bloody Mary real? Well, this is one of those urban legends that has remained popular for decades. And despite all the jump scares and spooky stories surrounding her, we may never know for sure. But here are a few things we do know about her. She hails from America, the land of opportunity, apple pie and ghosts. And though she's most often associated with the ghastly happenings in the infamous Amityville horror house, her story actually began over 100 years before that, in 1902. That's when George Kelly and his wife Mary moved into a house at 2311 North Ocean Avenue in Long Beach, California. The couple had 3 children, and their home was often filled with music and laughter until, as they say, one fateful night. Mary Kelly went to bed early, but around 3 a.m., she awoke in her bed to what sounded like screams in the night. Her husband, George, was away at sea, and so she got up to investigate. She found one of her daughters in the hallway and asked her what was going on, but the girl said she hadn't made a sound. And Mary, feeling a bit silly for being woken up over nothing, returned to bed. A few nights later, though, the commotion started again. Mary awoke to screams and, yes, more commotion in the hallway. This time she went downstairs to see what was happening. She described it as if something horrible had been tearing everything to pieces. Again, she called out to her daughter, who swore she hadn't made a sound. But Mary knew that someone or something was in the house. The next day, she told her neighbor, Mrs. Loder, about the commotion and asked if she'd heard anything the previous night. But Mrs. Loder hadn't heard a thing. In fact, no one else in the neighborhood ever seemed to hear anything. And after the commotion stopped, Mary was left wondering if she was going crazy. The following night, however, the noise started up again, along with some banging and shaking. Mary called out into the hall, asking whatever was making the noise to stop. And then she heard footsteps coming down the stairs. As she stood there listening, she felt a cold breath on her neck and heard a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once saying, "Leave this house." Then, as quickly as it started, it stopped. And in the morning, just as before, everything seemed normal. Mary told her story to a local priest who came over and blessed the house. And while nothing happened that night, it would happen again in the future. After all, Mary would soon find out that she wasn't alone in the house. Years after Mary's death, the house changed hands several times, and each new owner would tell similar stories of strange happenings in the house, including seeing the ghost of Mary herself. And whether or not these stories were true, they certainly helped build up the legend. But it was in 1968 that Bloody Mary really took off. That was the year that readers of Reader's Digest published a story about Mary and the haunting of the Kelly house. And since then, Bloody Mary has become one of the most famous ghosts in America. But is there any truth to the legend? Well, despite all the stories surrounding the Kelly house, there's very little documentation. Most of what we know comes from the Reader's Digest story, which itself is based on interviews with one of the house's former owners. And even that source seems a bit unreliable. There are a few articles that mention the Kelly house, but none of them include much detail. And the only physical evidence we have are the house's former addresses, which are now different. So unless more evidence surfaces, we may never know if Bloody Mary is real. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on our latest videos. I'll see you next time. Bye.